Can we talk for a minute about our Integrating Heart and Mind workshop?
Absolutely. I'm excited. It's coming up in the fall of 2024.
I'm so excited. We changed the format to make it more accessible to people with like work schedules and personal schedules. And so this time we're going to do it 3 hours on a Friday afternoon or evening, depending on where you're at, and 5 hours on Saturday for 2 different weeks in September.
Yeah, it's so great. Like if you're finding yourself stuck in like sticky bad patterns or having communication issues or something like that, or if you want to just like get closer and trust yourself or your partner more, this is the workshop for you.
Yeah, and individuals are welcome, couples are welcome. If you're interested in really thinking through how to serve yourself well inside of your relationships, then we've built a workshop that will support you in finding the ways that are just right for you.
To sign up, head over to our website at whydoesmypartner.com/events.
We hope you'll join us. Welcome to the Why Does My Partner podcast.
I'm Jules.
I'm Vicky.
And I'm Rebecca. We're your hosts. We're also couples therapists and messy humans bumbling through our own relationships every day.
We met at a training, and our secret sauce is that we and our partners became fast friends. Between us, we have more than 40 years of experience holding hard relational questions with our clients. We're going to bring those questions here.
And together, we're going to take a stab at answering those questions. This podcast is not a substitute for couples therapy. If something you hear in this podcast stirs something deep within you about your relationship, reach out to a couples therapist in your area.
We also love to hear your questions, so don't forget to go over to whydoesmypartner.com to leave a question of your own. Our next live workshop, Integrating Mind and Heart, will be held online from September 22nd to 24th, 2023.
If you want to get closer and trust each other and yourself to get through the hard moments, this is the workshop for you.
Sign up at whydoesmypartner.com/events.
Why does my partner bring up safe topics to solve a problem when there are hidden issues not being discussed? I am loving this question. There's so many edges inside of this.
Yes.
It's like
I know.
such a freaking rich question.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Well, I love avoiding conflict. Who's with me?
Oh, I'm raising my hand. I don't think our listeners can see that.
You cannot see.
Yeah.
We all are.
We all raised our hand.
I would rather talk about something that's safer. Feeling.
And be able to solve a problem rather than sit inside of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, because I'm thinking I'd rather do anything.
And I don't want to talk about the hidden stuff. Like, like that's the stuff that probably is hidden because, I don't know, shame, worry about rejection, more shame.
Yeah, but like those are like the deep, real, authentic reasons. But I don't even know that I'm aware that those are the reasons I'm avoiding the big conversations. Like, I don't know.
How does it feel like inside? Like
I
if you're
hope you're not asking
avoiding
me.
Yeah, I am. No, I totally am.
I don't feel anything inside.
Yes, you do. You know what you're thinking. How does it
thinking? Yes, my thinking.
So how does it land for you? So let's say you're in a space where you're
Oh.
kind of avoiding bringing up something that's a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
You would stick to safe problem solves instead of maybe
Yes.
the more difficult or disagreed on problem solves. What is actually happening inside? What are you noticing?
That I've played through the whole conversation in my head and I know how negatively he's going to respond anyway. So there's just no point in bringing it up.
Oh, so anticipation.
Yes.
Anticipation looms really large.
Yes.
And inside of that anticipation, there's some kind of story.
Yes.
Mhm.
Some kind of story that maybe you've made up, right? Or maybe
Oh,
it's
totally.
I don't know
that. Yeah.
history based.
I mean, someone based on 17 years.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's still what I'm making up. 'cause
Right.
I have
Still the
talked to
story
him
you're making
about
up
it.
because the thing
Yep.
hasn't happened yet.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right. And so inside of that story, there's some kind of fear, something that's rising
Yes.
that's saying,
I can't handle his response.
oh, and then there's the avoidance.
There's the
Yeah,
avoidance.
there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
But so I
Yeah.
don't think I think you're right, Rebecca, about everything you said, vulnerable, all of that. It's just
Mhm.
that's not where my brain just goes to the pure
Right. You're
avoidance.
not thinking that that's the reason
Correct.
why.
That's
but
all I
as
was
we
pointing out.
track it,
But it is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I just
Mhm.
don't have that I don't want to say I don't have that awareness, but I don't see it through that deeply yet. So again, to me, it's just
Totally.
the avoidance. And I'm so far aware of like, and I'll tell him this now, it's my boundary issue because I know that my boundaries are not, I don't like the word firm for them, but like in place enough that I can handle his response. And I know he's
Mhm.
allowed to have his response,
Mhm.
but since I'm not in a position that day or whatever to deal with it, I would rather just not bring it up.
Right. So yeah. You know what this is bringing up for me is how helpful conflict is in building trust.
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of
So-
like we can't actually build trust without conflict.
It's actually not possible.
Uh-huh. Like
So
really.
Right.
No, literally. I mean,
Yes,
like
I've read the book.
physiologically, it's not possible. So the book,
Physiologically, that's really interesting. I mean, I know and I agree with you. It's still interesting to hear you say it like explicitly.
right. So here's the
Yeah.
thing about trust is trust is not built in moments that are going well. Trust is not built in safety moments.
It
Trust
took
is
me
not.
so freaking long. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
but it
do
took
it.
me so freaking long to learn that trust was actually something that people had to earn, that I couldn't just give it.
Yeah.
Mm. Can't you though?
You can choose to.
You could.
Yeah.
Sure you could.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
You don't want to. That's what you're saying.
No, that's not
Mhm.
what I'm saying.
What did you say?
I'm saying I had to learn that if I just gave trust without somebody earning my trust somehow,
Mm-hmm.
it was
Mhm.
empty. I didn't actually have something
Oh,
I could trust.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right? Like I
Mhm.
had to learn that trust was something that had to be earned. And the way to earn trust is to rumble with somebody and see how you
Mhm.
come out the other side.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
You
'cause
need a
trust is-
rumble in order to earn trust.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so trust is built, and if it's for some people, earned can sit hard, and for some people it's perfect. And so whichever way it is for you is fine. What I think we're talking about is that the experience of something being hard and us being able to come back into connection, to feel not heard and then heard again, to
Mhm.
feel um, like somebody hurt you and then owned it. Whatever that coming together
Yeah.
is, right? In that moment of coming together, we learned in our bodies and our lower brains, as much as the top of our minds, that we can do hard things.
Together.
And yes. And so this relationship can now sustain that level hard. And then a bigger conflict might come.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
A bigger, more scary conflict might come. And I might not know. I might
Uh-huh.
not know whether
That
or not
level
our relationship can handle that level hard. And so we bring it up, and maybe it goes terribly, and then maybe I even make up a story in my head that goes, "Oh no, our relationship
Mhm.
cannot handle that level hard." But I don't know I made up that story. It's sitting in the lower end of my brain, in my subconscious mind, where I just know for sure. Well, we don't talk about stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to phrase it.
And now, how much has stuff like that also become decontextualized over time within culture?
Oh my gosh, totally.
Right? Like, how many families have stories where, oh, we don't talk about that?
Mm-hmm. I just didn't know what the word decontextualized meant, but I think I'm catching up. That was a
Right.
big sentence.
Break it down.
Okay, so over time, through history, through relational histories, in families, in cultures, we end up having hard times with certain issues and not giving them full context, not talking about them,
Mm-hmm.
pushing them down, pushing them away, and then they become patterns that get passed through family styles of
Yeah,
relating.
okay. Mm-hmm.
And we no longer have the knowledge of why we do the thing we do.
Right.
But we have the patterning that this is the way we do things.
In I'm just thinking in my clients, but also in my own family system, sex would be a normal topic that would be off the table. So
That's
we
what you
don't
meant by
have
normal, one that we don't talk about, not normal and one that we do.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's totally normal
was
in my
thinking that.
family system that sex is not discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I want to go now and have a conversation with my husband around sexual issues, there's an internal
thing, a hurdle I
Mhm.
have to go through because everything in my whole system has known for generations. That's not a subject that's okay.
For generations, meaning that even before you came into being, even before you were
Mhm.
Right.
birthed, this
Mhm.
is the lesson that has been like laid down, the
Mhm.
knowings that have been laid
Mhm.
down inside of
Mhm.
your cellular knowledge
Mhm.
of
Right.
what is okay and what is not
But
okay.
it's not okay. And so that would be one of those that is in that taboo realm for my family system.
Mhm.
So for me to be able to talk with my daughter about sex education, or talk with my husband about a tender moment or vulnerability around sex, or to talk with a client about sex, I have to do a lot of internal work with that intergenerational history.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that what decontextualize means?
It's a big piece of it.
Okay. Good enough.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll take.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm borrowing a little bit from, and this might just be for those who want to know. I'm borrowing a little bit from Resmaa Menakem's work, where he would say that trauma over time gets decontextualized, and over time that starts looking like culture, right? So
The way we do things.
yeah.
Okay. That's just my verbiage.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Right.
That makes
so
sense.
maybe, and if we're talking about sex, maybe at some point in the past, there's been some sort of sexual trauma, and the
Mhm.
habit is then built in not to talk about sex. And then there's
Right.
generations and generations of people who just learned not to talk about sex because we didn't talk about sex that time when it was really, really hard and scary, and
Mhm.
there was a really violent thing that happened, or a hard thing that happened, or whatever. So it can be yeah, that's what I think Resmaa's talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so bringing us back to this question,
Yeah.
right? What does my partner, why does my partner bring up safe topics
Mhm.
to solve a problem when there are hidden issues not being discussed?
Mhm.
I'm hearing a few really important pieces in this. One is safe topics,
Mhm.
solving problems. So we're moving into like a fix it agenda, and hidden issues that aren't being discussed, right? So we have the conflict avoidance, we have the hidden stuff, like whose hidden issues,
Mhm.
right? Um, who's not bringing the stuff up,
Right.
Mhm. Yeah. It
right?
may be that I think there's hidden issues, but my partner doesn't think there is hidden
I was
issues.
just thinking that.
So if I'm not
Yeah.
bringing up the hidden issues, he isn't avoiding hidden issues. He didn't know they were there.
I was thinking that's why I chuckled. Because Gabe would be like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
He's like, there are hidden issues. I'm avoiding hitting an issue. I don't even understand. Right. So it could be, and what's safe to who? It could be
Yeah.
that the person who's bringing up the safe, and I'm putting my fingers in air quotes, thing, that actually for them, that is even
A topic.
scary and hard. So I don't have any clue, but I think in general, it is common to do a little dance I like to call conflict avoidance. That we'll just not talk about the hard things, or
Yeah.
not talk about hidden issues, or not talk, or keep stuff to a safe surface because we don't want to do the conflict. And that's really tragic, because conflict is what teaches you we can get through hard
We
things.
can handle it.
And then you build trust and the stability, the firmness, the edges of the relationship. And then you do a little bit harder thing. And now you've expanded your trust a little bit more. And now we do a harder thing, and your partner even surprises you and shows up in some really deeply emotionally attuned way they've never done before. And we
that you
build
weren't
trust more.
expecting.
You had no idea this was going to happen. You didn't even think it was possible. And trust deepens even more. So it's really too bad. I feel like it's I think it's too a cultural thing. I don't know. It feels to me like sometimes we want everything to be like more positive and more happy and more positive and more great and more deep, but not in a hard way, and more positive and more fun. And it means we don't talk about things that might make it not like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of cultural
Yeah.
influence. So I think it's a tragedy in a larger way, because I think we're lonely and don't trust our relationships very much, because We
Mm.
don't tend to risk the conflict that's going to teach us whether or not this is actually trustworthy.
Oh,
Mhm.
pause there, please. It's tragic because we're lonely and we don't trust our relationships
Enough
enough.
to bring up the hard thing.
Yeah.
And then we don't build trust because we never
Mhm.
brought up the hard thing. So you're lonely
instead
inside your relationship. I bet you anything you're conflict avoiding.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
you're perpetuating it too, right?
I was just going to say that.
because you're lonely inside of your relationship, you're conflict avoiding. And because you're conflict avoiding, you're not giving yourself the ability to work through the hard thing. So because you're
Mhm.
not working through the hard thing, you're going to stay lonely.
Yeah. So it's like a little loop. It's
Yeah.
a positive
It
feedback
is.
loop that lasts forever.
And the more I just find myself thinking too, the more you're avoiding the conflict, the list is going to get bigger and bigger of things you can't talk about. Like there's no way it
Mhm.
just stays on like this one topic. Like at one point it's okay, we don't talk. I'm making stuff up. The big ones. We don't talk about religion, but then it becomes we don't talk about politics. And then it just
We
becomes
don't talk about sex. No, now we don't talk about money. Oh, we had
Yeah.
this one hard conversation about money. Now we don't talk about money anymore at all.
right. Yeah.
And what I find in my office is that folks will come in and they live inside of this conflict avoidance. And so it becomes a snowball where everything becomes this. And then they come into my office and they're having a fight over, I don't know, the dishes or what cereal to buy or, right? Like
Mhm.
something that feels like it should be pretty benign. But what they're actually fighting about, the process underneath it is we don't know how to do conflict.
Mhm.
I don't know how to tolerate that we might really see things differently.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah, I
that's
don't know
what-
how to
Yeah.
I don't know
That
how to
sentence
stop
was it.
things and get back into connection if things
Right.
go awry.
And so
Like, we don't have a
everything becomes
process.
about that.
Mhm.
I
Right?
don't know how to tolerate that we see things differently. That
Well, I don't know how to tolerate that there might be conflict here. I don't know how
Yeah.
to tolerate that we have different histories.
Yeah.
We have different knowings of how
Mm-hmm.
right. So maybe we should talk about that part. Maybe we should talk about the like what do our histories know about conflict?
Right. So here's your U-turn for this episode is if you look at your own family history, significant peer relationships, it could be sibling relationships, it could be witnessing parents, it could be how parents treated you in moments of stress, it could be even significant other relationships that you've had, maybe even old moments in this relationship. What do you expect to happen in conflict? And the reason I care about that is because of how much your history influences how you see the world every moment of every day. So there's a thing about the neocortex, and I might have talked about this before. And if I have and you totally get it, feel free to let your mind wander for 30 seconds while I explain it. But for those who want to refresh or have never heard this before, here's the thing. Your neocortex is built up of these columns of neurons, and it's 6 little neurons stacked on top of each other, and 6 neurons makes one column, and then there's 6 neurons make the next column, and 6 neurons make the next column, and so on and so forth. Now, the bottom 2 neurons in these columns get their information from systems in your brain that are processing what is happening right now.
Like a video camera, right?
Like kinda, yeah, like a video camera, or
Simplifying
like it could be a visual thing, or it could be even a smell, or
Oh,
It
sure,
could be that
sure.
like you're
Yep.
listening to this podcast right now
Yep,
and what
yep.
our voices evoke inside
Right.
of you as you hear
Yeah.
us talking.
Well, what they evoke inside of you, we'll get to in a second. But it may be the audio part of it coming in, but it could also be like that you're hungry while you're listening to our podcast. So it's interoception.
It's more than a video
plus
camera. Thank you.
Sensate input. So it's a little bit more than a video camera, but it's what's happening right now, both inside your body and around your body, as far as you can tell. Now, the top 2 neurons in this column get their information from systems in your brain that are processing your implicit memory history,
Which is
the subconscious memory system
that is active all the time, that is recording new information all the time and sorting it into a variety of categories. And all these categories make it quicker to recall. And so your system, your brain, your lower brain system will go, hunger plus this voice equals what from history would be relevant here? And ask the implicit memory system to go ahead and throw up salient data. And that salient neural network lets that memory come through. And so the top two neurons get some information about what you already know about the way the world works. And then the top two neurons and the bottom two neurons talk together to layers 3 and 4 in the middle, and voila, that is what you're actually experiencing. So when you hear our voices and then some feeling happens, that feeling is coming partially from what you heard in our voices, partially from whatever's happening in your body right this second, partially from your history. And it all comes together to help you make your version of how to make sense of this sentence and how to make sense of the tone of my voice. And speaking of conflict, how to make sense of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
What do you expect conflict to happen? So this is why I say to my clients who come in, your brain is wearing history colored glasses and you never get to take those history colored glasses off. This is a wiring thing. In fact, the top two neurons are more influential.
By how much?
Depends on the study you're looking at, but somewhere between 60 to 90%.
Thank you.
More influential. And if you paid attention really closely to what's happening right now, you are still looking at that through the lens of your history. Just maybe you took it down a little bit lower than normal. So down into the 80 to 60% version, if you paid attention to your feet this second.
And Jules, when you say history, tell me if I have this wrong, but this is what I've interpreted from you.
Yeah.
I tell my clients every bit of information your brain has been gathering since you were 6 months gestational.
That's correct. So, but you can't access, you can't access the whole of the data all the time. So instead of accessing everything, you have a neural network in there that says, this is relevant data
to this.
And so sometimes it's relevant, sometimes it's not so relevant. We make a guess, we do the best we can. So, there's no moment where you're not looking through the lens of your history at what's happening now. So when you think about, can I handle a hard conversation with my partner? Everything you know about seeing a hard conversation between those teachers and a hard conversation between those parents and the hard conversation you had with your brother and the hard conversation that you had with that friend in the 5th grade, all of that already was in that neural network that knows conflict means fill in the blank. So my U-turn suggestion for you is to be really curious with yourself.
About what conflict means to you.
About what conflict means to you based on your history. And it's way before anything that's happening in whatever relationship you're in now, I promise. Because most of this stuff, especially stuff that's relationship like this, a lot of times you have your first kind of map, if you will, of these categories laid down by about age 5, your first version. So we're going to be looking at early history, at family history, at least as part of what you learned about conflict. And certainly in my office, I've seen people show up and you would think it was early history. And you know what? It wasn't. They had a really hard boss when they were 21.
Yep.
So I don't want us to get caught in it. It's always mom and dad, blah, 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 blah. It's not. A lot of stuff happens. It's just, is it laid down early, at least that conflict is possible? Yeah, that you'd know that by 5. You would know that by 5.
Yeah, by 5, you would have a sense of, we could do hard things.
Or, hey, we avoid hard things always, no matter what. Or I don't have to do hard things. So I'm thinking of a person I worked with whose parent was incredibly attuned, really, really deeply attuned. And this person did not have trust in her own system because she had not had to do hard things
She never had to.
This parent was great at guessing her needs before she had to speak them. She was an only child. She was attuned to with like such a fine, and she had a really, really hard time handling difficult emotions and going ahead and risking conflict because she had never experienced it before. So maybe conflict doesn't exist as your early map. I don't even know that that's a thing. In fact, it shouldn't be. In this world, we don't have that. So the first thing I would do if you're in a situation where you're in that tragic loop of loneliness in your relationship that comes from not bringing up hard things and we don't have the trust in our relationship, the first thing I'd do is make a U-turn and wonder about what you know about conflict, because I promise you it is affecting this situation because it can't not. It's just how your brain is wired and we can't change biology.
Well, it's funny. I also found myself like literally, audience, live realizing this. What did I say at the beginning of like my whole story in my head why I don't bring it up to Gabe is I know I can't handle this. And now I'll be ruminating on that tonight because I don't know where that sentence stems from. So there's that.
There you go.
There's
Look at
something
you
about
making
that.
U-turns live
Right.
on,
So I figured I would
on our podcast.
I figured I'd fill everyone in that that's happening live. Because I've literally never thought about that before,
Right.
but it came up like there's clearly something there. I know I
Yeah.
can't handle it.
And
Making
she's
a
writing
note.
it down.
She's writing it down so she can come back to
I
it.
know I can't handle it. And so then she can make a U-turn later about, oh, I wonder, why do I think I can't handle it?
Yeah.
What did I see that makes
What
me
did I
know
see?
for sure that I can't handle it? What have I experienced somewhere, somehow that makes me know?
Because it's not all Gabe. I want to point that out. Like, that's what I'm realizing.
Right.
So it's not all, 17
not
years
all
with
him.
him, sure, but it's not all him.
No,
like,
no.
as Jules was taught, and by the way, again, audience, Jules has taught Rebecca and I this. We've known that history colored lenses stuff before. But as she was talking, that sentence hit me and I was like, oh, there's something about that sentence. And that goes younger than Gabe. That's how I phrase with my clients. That goes younger. So I will be doing some thinking.
You'll be sitting with that.
I'll be sitting with that and seeing if I can find it.
Can I offer us all something, like our listeners, us, like all of us, as you sit with this? And I think this is kind of like what we're all tasked to do. Is how do we sit with this? What do we do with it when we're sitting with it, right?
Yes.
And so I like to think about a few different skills that I think really help and hold us in these places of how to sit with it. I've kind of coined a term that I later found out.
I love this.
Someone else has already like gotten this word in the dictionary, but I don't know that they're using it in the same way that I am. But the word for me is witnessing. So it's kind of like being with and witnessing at the same time, witnessing. And what we're doing there is like a few different things all at the same time. When we can be with ourselves in that way, when we can witness our own mind, our own process of what we're going through, what we're starting to do is we're undoing some of that loneliness.
Between
Because
you and you.
Within myself.
Right? Between you and yourself, we're starting to undo a little bit of that aloneness. And we're bringing hopefully some compassion into that. Like, oh, here's some new information that I'm exploring. And can I just be with this? I don't have to bring an agenda to it. I don't have to
change it.
I don't have to change it. But I just want to like, can I pause with it? Can I be with it? Can I witness what's happening inside?
Witness with a relationship.
Yes.
And I can hear in your voice, and I think it's worth naming out loud, there's a little bit of kindness here. It's really helpful.
Maybe a little bit more than a little. But that's definitely
if you needed to start with a little, that's fine.
Yeah.
But a little bit of kindness can go a long way.
Yeah. And so I'm developing the skill of bringing up this witnessing mind, of being able to bear witness and be present with and be in relationship with the new parts of me that I'm starting to discover.
So for people who are new to witnessing, what is it you would be in a relationship with exactly?
This new old learning that's kind of starting to emerge that you're sitting with and exploring. And
and how might they discover it?
Well, the same way that Vicky just did.
Yeah.
there's
For
something.
sure, they might catch their language.
Yeah, they might catch their language, right? There might be just something like, oh, there's something going on here for me. I'm not really sure what it is. There's an edge. There's something I'm kind of sitting with.
And even as I see you, you're like pointing your hands to your body's
Yeah,
wiggling. So it may be like a sensation or a
Right.
muscle movement that comes up.
Right. And so then I like to think of this acronym,
Mhm.
right? This acronym, it's the word BASIC, BASIC,
Mhm.
right? And so if you think of basic, just remember that word.
It's the
I'm gonna-
basic way your mind talks to you.
Right. Right. And so we're creating now like a practice of pausing
Mhm.
where we can be in this witnessing mind and we can go through this acronym as just a way of kind of like checking in. The basic acronym is going to give us a few different prompts that help us to figure out like, oh, what's happening inside of me right now?
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
B stands for behavior. Like, what am I doing?
Like, how
Are there
does my body want to move? If my body goes to stillness really hard, like, oh gosh, I can't move, that's also a behavior.
That's also a behavior. Am I like acting in a particular way? Like, is there something that I'm doing? Right? Just check in with that. Is there something I'm doing right now? Right? For me, sometimes like I start getting like uncomfortable and like wiggly in my seat or something. Like there's something going on. The A stands for affect, which is also another fancy way of saying feeling or emotion, right? There's something kind of coming through me. Like, what is it that I'm feeling? Maybe I'm actually like kind of sad, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's fear. Maybe I don't know exactly what it is, but can I notice it and maybe give it a name?
Yeah. So right now, I can already do a basic track with conflict. So I'm just imagining bringing up something hard. And I notice I'm holding my breath, behavior, and I feel scared. Ooh,
Yeah,
that's a feeling. So
That's
there's
a
my
feeling.
affect.
there's the affect. And now the S stands for sensation, right? So like, what am I noticing on a sensate level? It might be that maybe my skin is getting really hot or my hands feel really clammy. It could also be that my breath gets more shallow or my heart starts racing.
And as I'm sitting with it, I can feel like a round, like a circle. It feels like a disc in the center of my chest, and it seems almost red to me for some reason. So there's a red. So now I'm sensation tracking.
Right.
So I'm just noticing, oh, I could bring up a hard thing, and I'm noticing what happens in my body. Oh, what does my mind know about bringing up hard things? Oh, I stop everything. Every joint is frozen. I held my breath. I'm feeling afraid. Oh, there's a sensation of red heat in a disc shape in the middle of my chest and heart.
Yeah. Now the I stands for image. So image is an interesting word because it could mean like there's a memory of something, an image that shows up, but it could also be like an image of like, I don't know. I have sometimes images of smells, right? Like I might look at something or remember something about like my great grandfather, and then the image of the smell of his apartment shows up.
Yeah, think of image as anything in your sensate world. So it could be a taste, smell, a touch memory. I'm thinking about working with somebody who all of a sudden they felt their dad's beard against their palm when we were working with a little bit of history, but that was super weird because dad had not had a beard since this person was 2. And so it was like it was a sensation fragment, basically.
Yep. And then the C is cognition. So that's like the meaning that I'm making up, the thoughts that I'm having, the thinking part of me right now. Right. So that's basic.
So Vicki, you tend to maybe know the cognition first. So you saw that sentence come out. You don't have to start with behavior just because the word starts with a B. You could you could start tracking. And I want our people to be really gentle with themselves. If this is brand new for you, you may only get one little thread of this for now.
Yeah,
and
that's
fine.
great. That's great.
That's fine. You don't feel it's like we're wanting you to have a lot of different ways to track. And maybe you can track all of them, but if you can only track 1 or 2 of them, that's also great.
Awesome. Yeah.
I also want to point out the kindness that you both were mentioning, because I want you to even picture what I said. I could easily, when we get off this call, think to myself, I can't handle it. oh, what is wrong with me? I can't handle anything. Like that could go in so many different directions versus, okay, so this came up and there's this part of me. Not only did it come up live, but it also like, this must have been a conversation we had because I see myself loading the dishwasher. So there's another image of actually having this thought. So then it's about sitting with what is that about?
Right.
Let's get to know that more without the judgment and the harshness that I could easily scold myself for it. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that kindness piece.
The kindness is so big. And
It's
what I
really
think you're
big.
really pointing out here, Vic, is how important it is that we turn towards ourselves, that we do this U-turn in another relational building way.
Yes.
Right? Like we're trying to build
Yes.
the trust with our own system. We're trying to teach ourselves, oh, it's okay. We can manage hard things. We can be inside of this.
Yeah.
And so if I come at myself harshly, I'm going to run away from myself.
Yeah.
If I come at myself with kindness and with curiosity, and I'm wondering things like, what am I hoping for inside of this? That might just shift that I know that I can do this. And if I know that I can do this, then I can bring it to you.
Yeah. Yep. And we should put that basic thing in the show notes.
Yeah.
I shouldn't call it that basic thing, but we should
We should
spell
put
that
the
out
prompt.
for people.
Yeah, we'll spell out basic in there.
I like that you're calling it that basic thing. And I know we've held our people here. Ooh,
Yeah.
we got into it this time. I love this.
We did.
We are
This is a
building
lot.
our bandwidth for Discord. So as you think, just to wrap up for today, as you think about, why do I avoid conflict? Why might my partner avoid conflict? One of the big reasons might be that you have a history, a knowing, an emotional learning somewhere along the way about what conflict means that isn't so great.
Yeah.
And if you want to find out what that is, go ahead and make that U-turn with your witnessing mind, with kindness, and track basic, and then wonder about where this comes from. And if you're really brave, you might even share that history with your partner once you discover whatever that is.
Wow, that would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, y'all.
Good luck.
Have fun with this one
Yeah, take care of each other best you can.
and take
Bye-bye.
care of yourselves.
That wraps up this week's episode. Join us again next week for another Why Does My Partner?
We hope that you continue to listen wherever you get your audio and that you'll follow the show.
To go deeper, join us at one of our workshops. You'll find our next date at whydoesmypartner.com.
Did you know you can ask us your questions?
Your questions are relational gold.
Go to whydoesmypartner.com to either write in or record your question for a future episode.
And here are some gratitudes. Thanks to Al Huberman, our sound editor and podcast production magic maker.
Thanks to every one of you who has joined us for our workshops in the past. We've learned so much from all of you.
And thanks to everyone who's reviewed the show on Apple Podcasts. Your reviews help others to find the show.
Take care of each other best you can.
See you next time.